Holy shit. CM Punk is back on WWE Backstage, and I could not be any more excited. The enthusiasm you hear in my voice right now is nothing compared to the screams I let out this morning when I read the news. My phone blew up. I got a ton of tweets, DMs from people sending me the video of CM Punk returning to WWE. Or really not WWE, I should be specific here. Fox, the WWE Backstage show that's been on the air now for a few weeks. I've yet to really watch it. I checked out the first maybe 20 minutes on the premiere episode 2 weeks ago. The rating fucking bombed. Not 2 weeks ago, it was last week. And WWE must have seen that the rating bombed, so they brought in CM Punk, not WWE, but Fox officials. And you know what? Maybe this has been in the works for a while now anyway. There have been talks about CM Punk being on the show as early as August. And then talks cooled off. Reportedly, that very well may have been a ruse to kind of, steer people off the scent of CM Punk coming to WWE Backstage. I honestly think that if this was in the works the entire time, then they would have had him debut on that first show. I truly do think that Punk was in talks to be on the show for a while, then talks cooled off because they didn't really want him or whatever, or he turned it. I mean, I don't think he turned it down. I think it was more a matter of, they just didn't want him for the role, going out there and shilling the product until they saw the rating come in for the first show. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you have CM Punk on your first show? That's why I watched that first show on FS1 last week with the hope that CM Punk would be on. And when he wasn't, I was like, okay, I'm never watching the show. Because honestly, I have no intention, I have no desire to waste an hour on a Tuesday after already watching Impact, Power, NWA Power, Impact, what else is on? AEW Dark, and even Total Divas. And then sit down to watch Renee Young, Booker T, Paige and Christian show, the current WWE product. Why would I want to do that, So anyway, I really had no desire to watch the show. I didn't watch last night. I went to bed around midnight, woke up to the news this morning that Punk had debuted on the show at the very end of it to Cult of Personality and all. It was absolutely amazing. I'm still getting goosebumps right now just talking about it. And I'll go into more details about CM Punk arriving on Backstage at the end of this episode of #AskGSM, episode 311 here today for Wednesday, November 13th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. If you want to send in a question to the show for me to answer right here on the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So without further ado, let's get started here. The last two episodes have gone well over an hour. So we'll try to keep it on the shorter side here today. Maybe not exactly 25 minutes, but I definitely can't keep going for like an hour and a half here on the show. It's just way too long. Although I do love answering the questions in depth, though. Nonetheless, first question comes from Elena the Y from YouTube. Their question was, Full Gear was a solid, if long, pay-per-view with a main event I'm still not sure how I feel about. I still appreciate AEW's variety in their wrestling action. We got a show with a gutsy Southern title match, a Joshi student versus mentor match, and some Spot Fest tags, topped off with a death match style brawl. So that's all well and good. All that said, Moxley versus Omega was very long for a match that's built on convoluted torture gimmicks, and I can totally get the mixed reactions I've seen. There is something to be said for two guys putting their heart into beating each other into a dramatic death, though, so the effort should be respected in the context. What did you make of AEW Full Gear in general? I thought overall it was a very good show. I completely agree with you. I enjoyed the main event for what it was, though I absolutely understand the mixed criticisms towards it. I've seen a lot of people say it was shit. I've seen a lot of people say I don't care for that type of stuff. Even RJ texted me on Sunday after watching highlights from the match. Or maybe it was Monday. Either one, he had said, I saw highlights from the match. Not really my thing. I don't like the hardcore stuff. Neither do I. Once in a while, maybe. I like the Joey Janela match. This was 10 times more extreme than what we saw at Fyter Fest with Janela and Moxley. Again, I enjoyed it for what it was. I completely agree, though. They might have gone too far, and it was way too fucking long. Not just the match, but the whole show was way too long. The show did not end until 11:40 Eastern Time here on the East Coast. What the fuck? If you guys really want to be an alternative to WWE, you gotta have shorter shows. SummerSlam, which is one of their top 4 pay-per-views for WWE, that is, their SummerSlam show ended around, 10:30? Obviously, it started at 7, but it was only around 3.5 hours after being advertised as a 4-hour show. Full Gear It was never said what time it would end, but it ended up going longer than that for a random-ass show. Now, again, I understand it's a quarterly thing. Very likely they're going to have one in May, August, November, and probably February, I would have to guess. That would be my assumption. That's still no excuse. You have a good enough roster. You didn't shove everyone onto the card, which I appreciate. But at the same time, though, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the whole, go 3.5 hours. Like, a lot of those matches were very, very good. There really wasn't a bad match on the entire show, if we're being honest here. Some flat ones I'll get to later. But the show did not need to be 3.5 hours long, 3.5+ hours long. It just wasn't necessary. For example, Bucks, Santana, and Ortiz. Great opener. Did it need to be 21 minutes? Probably not. Cody and Jericho, did it need to be 29 minutes? Probably not. Could have shaved off 5 minutes there in the beginning. Janela and Shawn Spears. Did that need to go 11 minutes? Absolutely not. For a match no one really couldn't have cared less about going in. Did that really need to go 11 minutes? Again, probably not. But still, overall, I thought, putting that aside, and they really need to work on their timing issues because I'm not a fan of that. I completely agree. I fucking hate how they go overtime. Obviously not with Dynamite. NXT, if anything, goes overtime more often than Dynamite does, and they have a very hard deadline for when the show has to go off the air, which I appreciate and understand. But for the pay-per-views, come on. They do not need to be 3.5 hours. Double or Nothing, I get. All Out, maybe. Full Gear, come the fuck on. A lot of these matches did not need to go 15 minutes plus. It just wasn't necessary. So again, if you really want to be a true alternative to WWE, shorten up your shows. Please just do me that one favor. Overall, though, again, I thought it was a strong show. Probably, maybe not their weakest pay-per-view yet. I would really have to go back and rank each one of them. I'm not, really thinking about Fight for the Fallen or Fyter Fest. It was probably better than those. I like the main event. I really like Cody and Jericho. That was probably my favorite match of the night. The opener was great. The tag team title match was very good. You kind of hit on everything in your question there. But yeah, overall, I really like the show. They just absolutely need to work on the timing issues. And Moxley and Omega, again, going back to that real quick, I completely understand why people wouldn't be overly high on that match. Not to say that I was either, but I enjoyed it for what it was. It was an all-out, insane fucking brawl. I don't want to see that type of shit on every show, and that's, again, one of my gripes with AEW so far, is that I feel like we see a hardcore match on every single one of their shows. Maybe not every single one of them, but we saw one at Fyter Fest, and Fight for the Fallen, and All Out, and on this show, and we had a, fucking unsanctioned match on AEW Dark, which was completely unnecessary, between Omega and Janela about a month ago, and I was there for it. It was a really long match that was needlessly long. It wasn't necessary, again. We had... Darby Allin and Chris Jericho was a street fight a couple weeks ago. Again, a lot of these matches do not need to be no disqualification. I'll get into more of my gripes on AEW so far and NXT a little later on, but I thought I would mention that here too because it was relevant to your question. Brandon A. from YouTube, he's back here. His question was, "Hello, Sir GSM. Forgive my absence in my speech, as I have been immersed in the Lord of the Rings audiobooks in J.R.R. Tolkien lore recently. A couple of questions this week, though. And again, before I get started with the questions, I have yet to read and probably will never read, just because at this point, if I haven't already, I probably won't. The Lord of the Rings books. I'm not even really a big Lord of the Rings fan. I could see why people would like it. I saw the first movie and I was just kind of bored, to be honest with you. But again, people say the same thing about the Marvel movies and Star Wars, and I love that shit. So again, I completely get it. But that's cool you're reading the books, though, and you're listening to the audio books. That's awesome. Let me know how they are when you're done with them. Again, they're probably not for me personally. I think I did read The Hobbit, though. I'm pretty sure I read The Hobbit in like 7th or 8th grade. I did like The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings stuff wasn't really for me, but I did like The Hobbit, for whatever it's worth. Anyway, his first question, does Seth Rollins deserve all the hate he's been given recently? In the grand scheme of things, considering all the truly crappy things that some people in the wrestling industry have done over the years, it seems to me such light fare that Seth Rollins has done or been involved with to garner such hatred from fans who loved him just 1 year ago. It has to be so disheartening to know fans can truly hate your guts that quickly over some minor interview comments. What are your thoughts on this? Are fans completely justified? Is Seth completely wrong? Or is it somewhere in the middle? In my opinion, Rollins isn't completely in the right, but he also isn't completely in the wrong either. Just because he did make a lot of questionable comments in the media over the last couple of months about being the best wrestler in the world, and you can't say that shit without expecting the backlash from fans. When you still have, Jericho, or rather Punk was doing the whole best in the world gimmick years ago, and to be fair, there are better wrestlers in the world than Seth Rollins, in my opinion. That's not to say the guy deserves, heat for what he said, just because if you don't feel that way, then why the fuck are you in wrestling? At the same time, though, he has been very over the top about it. And not only that, but the stuff he said about AEW, Jon Moxley, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The AEW stuff I don't really give a shit about, just because Omega was the first one, I think, kind of thinking back on my timelines here, that Omega was the one that started that by saying, NXT is minor leagues, they're developmental, they don't have a single star in their roster, they would open up in a dark match on AEW, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Yeah, he was in character, Rollins wasn't, but who gives a fuck? Some people were trying to make the argument, it was okay when Omega said it because he was trying to be a heel character, but when Rollins said it, he's an asshole. Fuck him. Get the fuck out of here. That's such bullshit. If you're going to give shit to Rollins for it, you got to give shit to Omega for it, too. It's the exact same thing. No double standards here, character or not. They both said it. They're doing it just to kind of take jabs at each other. I don't really care about that. The Moxley thing, Rollins is probably closer with him than anyone else. So for him to say, in so many words, he probably shouldn't have complained about it. Was he really doing everything he could to make it better when he was here? Blah, blah, blah. I thought that was kind of bullshit because, again, if anyone knows what Moxley is going through, it would be Seth Rollins. And, of course, it's easy for Rollins to say that because he was the Universal Champion for the better part of 2019. Was anyone calling out Seth Rollins for being a fucking baby all those years ago before he arrived in NXT when he's even gone on the record and talked about this, about how he was so upset, he was so frustrated, he basically wanted to get fired when he was down in developmental, because I think he was signed maybe in either 2009 or early 2010, I don't remember. But he didn't debut in NXT for another 2 years. He was never brought up to do the sci-fi show, and obviously for the better. But he was never... Shit, my phone just fell. He was never brought up to do the competition-style show they did for those 2 years there before they rebranded it into what it is today. And he was getting frustrated down in FCW. He thought he deserved more than wrestling in front of 10 people in fucking Florida. You know what, dude? Tough shit. Pay your fucking dues. No one was saying that back then. So who's he to say that, Moxley probably should have made the better of his situation, probably shouldn't be complaining about it. I completely agree with him in certain respects about other people. Even Punk probably shouldn't have been as negative as he was about WWE when he first left 5 years ago and did that whole podcast about 5 years ago. At the same time, though, when it comes to, Rollins' comments, with Moxley I thought was the exception. Moxley I thought was as professional as possible in saying why he thought, why he felt it was right to leave, what's wrong with the system, and he was only speaking for himself. He wasn't speaking about Seth Rollins or other talent and how they feel there and blah, blah, blah. Jericho may have done that, and Jericho doesn't get any heat for it when he said, I don't know anyone in NXT. They're all fucking nobodies, blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's a heel, so it's okay. Get the fuck out of here. Again, get that fucking shit out of here. Rollins is a babyface, so it's okay if Jericho says it, but not okay if Rollins says it. Get the fuck out of here. But to answer your question in short, no, he does not deserve all the hate he's been getting, because I feel like a lot of that, part of that is of his own doing with the comments he's made in the media. I don't think he should be booed out of the building for that shit. I mean, the guy is still very, very good. And you are absolutely right. Those same fucking fans a year ago were bowing to this guy as if he was a fucking god. And I was one of them, and I still am. I'm still a very big Seth Rollins fan. But you could make the argument at this time a year and a half ago, he was one of the biggest baby faces in the entire company. And those same people that are shitting on Rollins right now are probably honestly booing him for his booking and not so much himself. I would say that about Roman. I mean, anyone telling Roman to go die and all this other shit are obviously disgusting and don't deserve to be a part of this fandom, or any fandom for that matter. I think a lot of people booed Roman and still boo Roman. To how many people there are that still do that. Maybe because they think it's the cool thing to do at this point. I don't know. But years ago, it was because of Roman's booking as the top babyface when he really shouldn't have been. I'm sure he wasn't opposed to going heel, but they decided to not go in that direction, and he suffered as a result, because they're not the ones that are suffering here. It's Roman Reigns. And now Rollins is kind of in a similar position where they should turn him heel. I'm not sure how likely that is to happen in the near future. People thought it would happen like this week on Raw, like obviously not. If it wasn't going to happen after Hell in the Cell or after Crown Jewel, it's not going to happen, I don't think, anytime soon. I mean, obviously, stranger things have happened, like CM Punk returning the backstage on Tuesday. But I feel like they would have pulled that trigger already if they were going to go in that direction. But with Rollins, though, I don't think he deserves the hate that he's been getting recently. He's been getting, like, death threats. Like, leave the guy alone. It's not that big of a deal. And you're absolutely right. There are far more people in wrestling that have done far worse than Seth Rollins, especially from a personal standpoint and not from a character standpoint. You know, Rollins saying he's the best wrestler in the world is like the biggest deal in the world. But all these other people out there, you know, like Jeff Hardy almost killing people on the road, getting the DUIs, you know, when he comes back, he'll be cheered beyond belief. Like, it's kind of double standards to me. I feel like people kind of put their attention towards things that aren't really necessary, like who cares? I'm not saying I'm the biggest Rollins fan right now. I am a big Rollins fan, but the booking is questionable. I absolutely agree with the masses. He should have gone heel by now. That being said, though, with the hatred he gets and people booing him and saying that he should die and all this other stuff is completely blown out of proportion. I don't agree with that at all. I think people are really kind of making something out of nothing because, again, he was the biggest babyface a year and a half ago. What changed? Aside from the comments he made, which are, again, questionable, and I don't agree with everything he said in the media in the last couple of months, all the hate that he's been getting from fans is just, it's unbelievable. It really is. It really goes to show how fickle some fans are. And I don't blame, I mean, again, he probably shouldn't be saying some of the stuff that he does on podcasts and in interviews. I mean, you would never hear Roman say stuff like that when he was on top, or John Cena. Rollins is kind of a different story. I do think Rollins can be the top babyface of the company. Maybe not right now at the current direction he's headed in. Maybe after a heel turn, a lot like I said with Roman 4 or 5 years ago. But at this current point, they should turn him heel. But it's not, you know, it's not at a level where it's like the guy's an absolute asshole. Fuck him. Like, give me a break with that nonsense. I mean, obviously he's not a saint. This was the same guy, I believe, as far as I can remember, cheated on his fiance many, many years ago. With the whole pictures that were released and leaked and whatever, which was just disgusting. But, you know, the guy's not a saint. But at the same time, though, you know, he doesn't deserve the death threats and other shit he's been getting recently. It's just completely, again, blown out of proportion. Brandon's second question here. For this question, I ask for a very specific answer if you can. I would like for you to look at this question as if you were actually the promoter or booker of Ring of Honor. What 3 specific things should Ring of Honor do to bring themselves back into relevancy in the wrestling world? Note, great wrestling matches doesn't count as an answer because from what I hear, that's not an issue even still. You can answer this from a long-form strategy point or a strategy point of view of things, or things they can do, or let me repeat that question, or part of the question there. He said, you can answer this from a long-form strategy point of view, or things they can do quickly, or a combination of both. Thanks, and have a great week. P.S. I'm an episode and a half behind, so if you have already addressed these topics in the last few weeks, disregard them. No worries, I have not yet talked about this here on the show, but I have written about it in an article for What Culture that I don't think is still up. I put it up about a week ago. It got published. The title was 10 Harsh Realities Ring of Honor Must Face. The article had to get taken down, not for my writing or anything like that, but I guess because maybe it was too harsh in Ring of Honor. I asked about it. I didn't really get an answer as to why it was taken down. I just was curious if it was taken down, because I know I published it. I know it was published on the website, or really they edited it and published it, and I know I shared it on my social media pages, and then I looked back a couple days later and it was gone. So they had to take it down. It's not that big of a deal. But I did write about in the article things that they're dealing with at the moment that are very serious concerns for me as a fan that they should be working on. And that's completely putting aside the whole Joey Mercury tirade. And, you know, first and foremost, they have to come out and address that bullshit. Because Joey Mercury came out on Twitter a couple weeks ago, about a week and a half at this point, 2 weeks ago, after being recently let go by the company. And he knows all. You know, he knows where all the bodies are buried in Ring of Honor. He knows about everything going on behind the scenes. He's been there not for a long time, but long enough to know what the inner workings of Ring of Honor are, okay? So they have yet to address anything with what Joey Mercury said. They have yet to say that what he's saying are lies and all this other stuff, because he made some very serious points about the women getting seriously underpaid in Ring of Honor. As far as from what I've seen, unless I missed something, the upper management at Ring of Honor have not come out and said, listen, that's not true, or we intend to pay our women more. They're just trying to let this blow over. They're trying to let this shit blow over without actually addressing the issue of paying their women more. Again, as far as I know, I don't think it's been fixed. I don't work there. I'm not Kelly Klein, so obviously she would know better than I would. But I think it's absolute bullshit. A woman of her caliber, who has been the star of their women's division now for almost 5 years, is getting paid probably less than someone would at a fucking minimum wage job here in the Northeast. She's getting paid maybe $22,000 a year. What the fuck is that? It's absolute insanity. So, again, they got to come out and address that. That's more of a long-term thing. I can't say just, pay the talent. Like, they're backed by Sinclair. You know they got to have the money to pay their women the right amount. They lost a lot of money, or really lost a lot of talent last year with a lot of money to throw around when the Elite left in late December of 2018. The Young Bucks were gone. Cody was gone. Adam Page left. Marty Scurll very likely on his way out. They have to do a better job of retaining their talent. Now, I know Ring of Honor for a long time now has been a stepping stone for WWE and NXT, now AEW, where people go to kind of make a name for themselves, win the top title, and then move on. People like Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Dominik Dijakovic was there for a while. Lio Rush won their top prospect tournament about 2 years ago and is now in WWE, maybe 2-3 years ago. That's where the Hardys went after leaving TNA. They were there for a brief bit before going back to WWE. Obviously, the breeding ground for people like Adam Page, the Young Bucks. Cody went there after leaving WWE for about 2 years. Michael Elgin left there a couple years ago and is now in Impact doing great stuff over there. I'm not the biggest Michael Elgin fan because of personal stuff that he's done, but as a wrestler, the guy's great. But anyway, what could they be doing? A better job of fucking retaining their talent. I'm not exactly sure specifically what they can do to do that. One second, I just got to pick up my phone. Shit, I fucking ran over it with my chair, I think. Hopefully it's not broken. No, I think it's fine. We're all set over here, folks. But anyway, with Ring of Honor, I probably should have paused for that, but whatever. With Ring of Honor, they have to do a better job of retaining their talent, also addressing the issues that people have brought up in the media and people who used to work there, because it doesn't exactly sound like they have a great morale backstage at the moment. They have to bring in more notable names and do a better job of booking them. Jeff Cobb was brought in about a year ago, okay? He was brought in about a year ago, was made a star from the get-go by winning the Ring of Honor World Television Championship from Punishment Martinez on an episode of Ring of Honor TV. He went undefeated for about 8-9 months. He went undefeated for a while, had some awesome matches, lost like that to Matt Taven, the best in the world, in under 10 minutes, and that was it. And we barely saw Jeff Cobb after that. I think he recently unsuccessfully challenged for the Ring of Honor World Championship against Roosh in England and lost. The guy has no buzz anymore. He has zero buzz. And he was one of their hottest stars 6 months ago, So to me, it doesn't make any sense. It seems like they do a very questionable job of building around their talent. Obviously, Jay Lethal, in my opinion, is like bulletproof. He's been there for so long. He's done everything. Now he's going after the tag titles. He's kind of the exception. The Briscoes are the exception, but because they've always been there, that's why. They need more tag teams. They need to get rid of the fucking 6-man tag team division. It's a complete waste. I know Japan, I think, does it, but they have a lot bigger roster, a much larger roster than Ring of Honor. It might have been a decent idea when they brought it in about 3 years ago, but not anymore. They have no trios left. They barely have any tag teams. And the sad thing is that they instituted a Ring of Honor World Tag Team title a year and a half before they brought in the Women of Honor World Championship. How fucking sad is that? It took them like 10 years to give the women their own championship. Like, how does that happen? Their women's division is absolutely terrible. People poop on AEW. I'll be the first one to admit it. I do it every single week here on the show. But Ring of Honors is infinitely worse. They literally have no talent there. Kelly Klein is great. Not a big Angelina Love fan. Velvet Sky is there. Mandy Leon. They're all terrible. And that's it. The well runs dry beyond Kelly Klein and the Allure. They have Jenny Rose. Honestly, give no shits about her. Sumi Sakai's been there since the fucking dawn of the dinosaurs. She's not going anywhere. And, she's good, and she was already the champion, though. they had all this talent. For a long time, they had a lot of different women that were coming to Ring of Honor that looked like they would have one of the stronger women's divisions out there. They brought in the former Emma, Tennille Dashwood, about a year and a half ago to a lot of buzz. She was brought in. Madison Rayne was signed about a year ago. They had Deonna Purrazzo for a little while, for many, many years, actually, before she went to WWE. Kieran Q was there for a while. Who else did they have? I feel like they had even more women than that. I think Thunder Rosa might have been there for a little bit. Brandy Rhodes was obviously there, Maria Kanellis and a few others. But they're all gone. All of them left. Some went to AEW, some went to WWE, some went to Impact. They all went to other promotions because Ring of Honor has a dead women's division. They have no fucking women to build around in that division currently. It's Kelly Klein and the Allure. They got to bring in more women. They got to do more stuff to generate more buzz. Because NXT, AEW, killing it right now. There's obviously always WWE. Even Impact is making moves. More moves than Ring of Honor. I feel like they've been in the same stagnant spot now for about at least 3 or 4 years. And I thought they peaked with that amazing Final Battle show about a year ago. Alexis and I were there with her brother. They had a great time. That was their first Ring of Honor experience. It was one of the best shows I've ever been to. It was such a great show. And it's been all downhill ever since. Why are they still focusing on Bully Ray as the top heel in 2019? Explain that to me. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, they're building around certain people, which is nice. Matt Taven, I don't think is a main event player, at least not right now. He was the wrong choice to put that top title on at the G1 Supercard show. It was a fucking mistake. They should have put the belt on Marty Scurll, who could very well be on his way out. If he stays, that means they probably threw the entire world at the guy for him to stay. Because otherwise, I see no reason why he would stick around. He's already been a tag team champion. He's been the television champion. They're obviously not going to give him the top title, so why stay, That being said, though, I just don't get it. There's a lot of things wrong right now with Ring of Honor. Yeah, they still have some really good matches. I couldn't point you to a single, amazing match I've seen from ROH in the past 6 months. There's been some really, really good matches. No one, amazing match, holy shit, gotta go see it, must say. I haven't seen one of those from Ring of Honor in quite some time. So again, the Honor Club service, I'm subscribed for the pay-per-views. It's a good deal for the most part. It's like $9.99 a month. Or if you just pay all at once for VIP, it's, whatever. You just pay it all at one time and you get all the live pay-per-views. But, Honor Club, they have their weekly television show, and they changed up the format of the show, where previously, a lot like Impact, they would tape all their content at once, and then they would air it over the course of a month or two, which is fine. I mean, NXT did that for years and years and years. Impact did it for years and years and years. It's cost effective. It's not the best approach, but, it is what it is. The issue with them doing that was that they were still airing dated content even weeks after the pay-per-view already happened. They wouldn't get to the fallout from the pay-per-view until literally maybe a month later. If that, being generous. Maybe a month later. Rush won the World Championship in late September. They didn't address it on the show for another month after that. How the fuck does that happen? You know what I'm saying? They're not doing a great job of promoting their shows. They're not doing a great job of enticing other talent from other promotions to come on over. It's not like, when people would leave other promotions, Ring of Honor would be an appealing alternative to a lot of people. Not anymore, maybe for the money, but based off from what I've read and from what I've heard about how much money these people are being paid, they're not being paid nearly enough for their efforts. So those are just a few things I think they should work on if I was the booker. Bring in more talent, try to scout better talent, try to retain your talent, not by throwing money at them offering the reported amount of money they did for Matt Taven for him to stay. I love Matt Taven. I've been following the guy now for 10 years on the indie scene. He's not worth the amount of money they probably throw at him to stay. He's already done it all. What more can he accomplish? He probably should have just gone to NXT. At least it would be something different. We've seen the Kingdom a million times. We've seen Taven a million times. I love Jay Lethal, but he's a lot better than Taven, so I can kind of bear with him sticking around and being promoted as one of their top players. But they need more than just Jay Lethal and Matt Taven. Marty Scurll might be on his way out, like I said. They need more than the Briscoes. They need more than Kelly Klein. Bring in more people. Pay your fucking women more. I don't know how that's not happening already. It's 2019. I hate when people say, it's the current year, whatever. But it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit the women are getting paid, reportedly, at least their top female competitor, $22,000 a year. Get the fuck out of here. That's embarrassing. For a company, you would think with as much money as they have right now, for all the higher paid contracts that expired last year with the Elite and being owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, there is no excuse for the women to be making such a little amount in Ring of Honor. That, retain the talent, make the show more must-see. The weekly television show, if you watch the pay-per-views, you have absolutely no reason to watch the show. Absolutely no reason to watch the weekly show on Honor Club, Fight TV, what have you. Zero reason. Totally forgettable. Again, better matches. They have good matches, but they just don't have the talent. They have no stars there right now. And in the meantime, before you start scouting other talent from elsewhere and building up new people, build up who you have right now. You have Jeff Cobb. You have Jay Lethal. You have Roosh. You have a lot of great guys on that roster. A lot of great males and females on that roster that are just, fucking treading water right now. They're spinning their wheels because they have nothing going on. Ring of Honor has zero buzz, but that's no excuse for a guy like Jeff Cobb. For a guy like Jeff Cobb, who is as great as he is, and will be a very valuable asset to whatever company he ultimately signs with after Ring of Honor. His contract might be up soon, and if it is, I hope he gets the fuck out of there if they're not going to do anything with him. I know he likes working in Japan, but he could very easily go to NXT. Hell, I would love to see him in AEW, but anyway. There is no reason for a guy like him to be left off their shows for 3 months. Unless he was injured or he had some other personal stuff going on. The guy was not seen after Best in the World for another 3 or 4 months. That's unfucking believable and unexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. So they got to work on all that shit I just mentioned. The JJF Rant experience from YouTube. He sent these in last week. His first question was, Corey Graves recently said in an Ask Me Anything on Reddit that he's interested in being a manager. Who should he manage, and how soon can we get him off commentary? I don't mind Corey Graves as a commentator. I feel like I'm one of the few people who liked him from a commentator from the get-go. And I was far from the only one. There were a lot of people who were high on Corey Graves. I love the fact that he was being brought up from NXT to Raw. Oh, this is amazing. Corey Graves is one of the better ones they have. And then people started shitting on him as soon as he started appearing on Raw because, he's overbearing, whatever. He kind of became the new modern-day JBL. I will agree with that to a certain extent. But I still very much enjoy Corey's commentary on the whole. Nonetheless, though, who would he manage? That's a very good question. I always saw Corey, as a better talker than a wrestler. So that's not a bad idea at all. He kind of gave me Jeff Hardy, CM Punk, Seth Rollins vibes in NXT. And I never really saw him getting beyond a certain level. I was disappointed when he had to retire. But the commentary, he's probably gone a lot farther and gained a lot more success as a commentator than he probably ever would have as a wrestler on the main roster. Yeah, he probably would have made it there eventually, but there was a very good chance he likely would have fizzled out the same way Adam Rose did and No Way Jose, and obviously he was better than them. But there's a lot of very talented people who get called up from NXT who go on to do nothing. So maybe he was for the better. But who should he manage? That's a good question. Him and Nakamura would be cool just to hear him go, Kinshasa, in his matches and shit. Although Sami Zayn, I think, has been good for that role so far. When Sami Zayn has to go back in the ring, which he should, because that's his obviously true calling, Corey Graves could maybe move into that spot. I wouldn't be opposed to that. They need more managers. I'm not one person from the current Raw or SmackDown rosters jumps out at me as needing a manager. So I don't really have an answer for you aside from just Shinsuke Nakamura. Although he currently has Sami Zayn. I can't really think of anyone at the moment, but I do like the idea, though, of Corey Graves being a manager. I like him on commentary, but at some point down the road, if they need to switch things up, and that's not going to be anytime soon, they have depended on him as the voice of Raw, and now as the voice of SmackDown for close to 3 years, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. And he does their own podcast now and all that other shit, so again, I don't see Corey Graves going anywhere. Jared's next question here. Are there any specialty matches that we haven't seen in a while that you would like to see make a comeback? With Hell in a Cell going through decay, I would love to see stretcher matches and ambulance matches return, along with I Quit matches. Stretcher matches I like. We have not seen a stretcher match in a while. I'm surprised NXT hasn't revived that gimmick. That seems like a perfect gimmick for NXT. For like a match that we would have seen during the Ciampa Gargano feud, or maybe even as recently as Gargano and Balor. Maybe they can build towards that. with them in a stretcher match. Ambulance matches, I was never the biggest fan of, to be honest with you. They're not bad, and I know Shane and I think Kane had a really good one many, many years ago, like 2003, I think. The John Cena Ryback one, John Cena and Kane one, I feel like there's only so much you can. I mean, I think Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose had one a few years ago too. I've never been a big fan of that stipulation, and also Roman and Braun, I think, at Great Balls of Fire. Yeah, I'm not a big ambulance match fan. I Quit matches, honestly, it depends who it's done with. They're very hit or miss. Some of them can be very boring, or, in some promotions they do it right. In WWE, with the constant, do you want to quit? Do you want to quit? No, I don't quit. Do you want to quit? No, I don't want to quit. Do you want to quit? No, I already said I don't want to fucking quit. Like, I feel like they put the mic up to the performers every 10 seconds, and it's so obnoxious. If done right, it can be a very good concept, but I feel like in recent years, for the past 5 or 6 years now, whenever they've done an I Quit match, it feels, it's like very repetitive. Do you quit? No. Do you want to quit? No. Do you want to quit? No. Like, they just keep doing it for 20 minutes, and it's like, holy shit, just quit already. Just be done with this nonsense, But stretcher matches, totally. Iron Man, I would like to see brought back. Obviously, we've seen quite a few in recent years, between the one in NXT in 2015 with Bayley and Sasha. We got another one in 2016, I think. Yeah, 2016 with Sasha and Bayley on the main roster at, I think, Roadblock End of the Line. We had one in July, I want to say, at Extreme Rules, or maybe June, I forgot which one. I think not Extreme Rules, but I think it was Great Balls of Fire, actually, between the Hardys and the Bar. Very good match there for the Raw Tag Team titles. I think it was a 30-minute Iron Man match. And they did another 30-minute Iron Man match at Extreme Rules the following year with Seth Rollins and Ziggler. So we've seen about 4 now in the last 5 years, but it's become more of an annual thing as opposed to the same time every year, or 2 in 1 year, whatever. I would like to see that brought back, even though we have seen it recently. That in stretcher matches. Ambulance, I don't really care too much for. And I Quit matches only if it's done the right way. I think NXT would do it the right way, maybe not as much. I don't think they would screw it up as much as WWE would on the main roster, because I feel like there it's been done to death, and it's just a bad. It doesn't make for a very compelling matchup, I'll say that. Last man standing matches, the exact same thing, very hit or miss, but NXT's already done a bunch of those. I wouldn't mind seeing a stretcher match or an I Quit match in NXT at some point. Bring back the Iron Man match too. We've only gotten that one in NXT with Sasha and Bayley, 4 years ago. To see that brought back with two guys like a Gargano and Cole, they went with the 3 Stages of Hell match instead in August, which was great, but, an Iron Man match probably would have been more fun, just my opinion. Anyway, at noob_n_co 1991, his first question was, what was the worst moment on Raw this week? Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair teaming up for the women's tag team titles, or the whole Lana Rusev storyline? Easily the Lana Rusev storyline. It's not even close. Becky and Charlotte teaming up for the tag titles made absolutely no sense. And it was insanely stupid because the commentators said, oh, Natalia's not here tonight. I didn't catch that the first time. I saw someone say it elsewhere, but the commentators said that Natalya had to go home for family issues, whatever, so she wasn't on the show. So instead, they had Becky fill in for her to get the tag title shot. That makes no sense. Natalya earned the title shot, not Becky Lynch. I know Becky Lynch, they used that as a means to an end to have her further her feud with Shayna Baszler going into Survivor Series, and, that's not a bad idea. But still, though, I thought that was really stupid. That said, though, the match was good. Becky and Charlotte versus the Kabuki Warriors on Raw was at least a good match. The Lana Rusev thing, I really can't pull apart any positives from that storyline whatsoever. It's just stupid. A complete waste of time. Some crowds dig Rusev for it because he's being painted as a sex addict with Lana. I could see why people would cheer him for that. But other than that, though, the whole thing is damaging and stupid and embarrassing. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So that has easily been the worst thing on Raw, not only this week, but for many, many weeks now since it started in late September. Noob's second question here. Can you do a top 10 video on WWE superstars that you don't think will go to AEW? I won't do a video on it, but there's a lot of people that are not going to AEW. Obviously, all the people that recently re-signed. The Miz re-signed as of yesterday. Paige re-signed. I thought there might have been a small chance that she could leave and wrestle elsewhere if she really wanted to wrestle. I mean, I guess they could always clear her at some point, a lot like they did with Daniel Bryan. It's a different story because his was concussions related, hers is neck related. It's very different. But if Edge can get cleared, there's a chance that Paige could get cleared too. We have yet to really hear anything on Edge and whether he'll be back. That was a hot story about a month or two ago. No real follow-up on that since then. But anyway, obviously The Miz isn't going anywhere. Paige, Rey Mysterio, I don't think he's going anywhere. This might be the last contract he ever signed is with WWE. AJ Styles has already said the last contract he signed with the company earlier this year will be his last in wrestling, period. Randy Orton re-signed. John Cena's not going to AEW. Kevin Owens re-signed about a year ago for 5 years, so he's not going anywhere. Shinsuke Nakamura's not going anywhere. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Like, a lot of these people I would like to see in AEW just to see them in a fresh environment. But like AJ has no reason to leave just because he's a top star in WWE. Why would he want to leave, other than just to work with his buddies for a little bit? It just doesn't make any sense to me. That being said, though, I mean, I could see the Revival going at some point, like I've said before. EC3 might be a good fit there. They're not doing jack shit with him. Apollo Crews, Chad Gable. Everyone else, though, honestly, I think the whole notion that, everyone wants to leave, everyone wants to go to AEW is so blown out of proportion. I feel like there's I'm not saying like 2% of the roster wants to go to AEW. I'm sure more than that. But not everybody. There's a lot of people there that I'm sure are very happy with where they are in the company and the money they're making. Samoa Joe, I don't see leaving. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. Like, a lot of these people will likely never leave and are lifers there in WWE until their career is over. So, honestly, I think you could really chalk up, I would say, about 75% of the roster in terms of people who really have no desire of leaving. Luke Harper, I could see leaving, obviously, going to AEW at some point. Maybe even Rusev and Lana if they don't re-sign. But everyone else, though, I see staying put right there in WWE. At Reborn again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine. Check out his awesome YouTube show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Always a great watch. His first question was, what is your opinion on the first 6 episodes of NWA Power? Also, are you planning to watch their pay-per-view Into the Fire on December 14th? I've been really enjoying Power so far. You can check out my full written reviews of the show on nextairwrestling.net. I don't break it down in audio anywhere. I don't really talk about it on Wrestle Rant Radio or anything like that, but you can check out my written reviews of the show. A lot like Impact. I don't really talk about Impact a lot on Wrestle Rant Radio, but I do write about it every single week on the website. So, in short, though, I've been really enjoying the fresh feel the shows bring. I said that weeks ago when it first premiered about a month ago. The talent they have, I'm a big fan of Nick Aldis, Colt Cabana, Eli Drake, James Storm, all very good wrestlers. Thunder Rosa recently debuted. She's really, really good. Not a big Marty Bell, Allison Kay fan, but they're doing well so far. Trevor Murdoch is there, Caleb Conley, Mr. Anderson. Some weird names mixed in there. The Rock and Roll Express have been back in NWA, which is cool. The shows are short. They pack a lot into those hours. Of TV. They pack a lot into just 50 minutes of TV, 45 minutes, however long it lasts, including commercials. But it's a very enjoyable watch every single week. Good storyline progression. Not a great show if you're a big in-ring fan of like the wrestling itself. They don't have a lot of like must-see matches. The main events are usually pretty good. Like this week's main event pitting the wild cards against, who was it? Eddie Kingston and Homicide for the NWA World Tag Team titles was pretty good. They had Cabana and James Storm for the NWA National Heavyweight Championship a few weeks ago, which was also good. Kingston and Homicide versus the Dawsons in a no DQ tag team match. Good match as well. Nick Aldis versus Tim Storm in the premiere episode about a month ago. So they've had some really good matches by their standards in terms of how long the show lasts and stuff like that. But I think their strong suit is absolutely the promos and the character work. And just to see wrestling back in a studio setting is even cooler. So yeah, I've been really enjoying NWA Power so far on YouTube over the past month. And I absolutely do plan on checking out the pay-per-view. I will be watching it. I will be covering it. Whether I can watch it live remains to be seen, but that will be a very busy weekend. Because as I tweeted out yesterday, that Friday, the 13th, is Ring of Honor Final Battle, which is basically their WrestleMania. The first year I will not be there since 2016, because I was there in 2017. Very good show. The 2018 show was even better. I will not be there this year. They're in Baltimore. But anyway, Ring of Honor Final Battle is that Friday. NWA Into the Fire is on Saturday. and then on Sunday is WWE TLC. So again, a very busy weekend of wrestling that I'll be watching all of. It's not like a New Japan show mixed in there, which I don't usually watch, or like a UFC pay-per-view or whatever. These are 3 promotions I follow and cover and will watch. So 3 consecutive pay-per-views in the same fucking weekend. It's nuts. And that's only a few weeks removed from a Survivor Series weekend with Survivor Series and TakeOver that Saturday. So it's a very fun time to be a fan right now. But to answer your question, I do plan on watching the show and we'll maybe even review it. Maybe we can break it down, John. We'll see. On Wrestle Rant Radio that following week, because I want to have you back on the show soon anyway. That might be pretty cool. But yeah, either way, I do plan on writing a review of the show on nextairwrestling.net, as I do for every episode of NWA Power on Tuesdays. John's second question: what do you think of Impact possibly putting the World Championship on Tessa Blanchard in the near future? Honestly, I'm not sure if I'd be in the minority on this, but I really don't have an issue with it. They've built her up enough to the point where it's believable. It's not like they're putting the championship on Rio and she's beating fucking, Madman Fulton. Like, it's not that she's huge, that she's Awesome Kong or anything like that, but she's good enough in the ring. She has... it's weird to say that she has good size. Like, I don't really say that about women, like female competitors. You usually say that about the guys, like, for example, like EC3 is good size. Like, he's built like a WWE superstar. You don't really say that about the women. She's not a monster or anything. But again, I think it's more from not a size standpoint, but a credibility standpoint. Because she is easily one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, if not the best. I would put her in that conversation with Io Shirai. Rio's very good. And Tessa Blanchard would be absolutely in that top 3, if not number 1. And yeah, I'm not, I know of the 4 horsewomen, but I don't know if I would put any of them at number 1. Not Sasha, Bayley, even Charlotte, or Becky. They're all great, but I don't think any of them are the best women's wrestler in the world right now. I do think Rio, at least from an in-ring standpoint, Rio, Io, and Tessa are better. But anyway, will she win the championship at the January Hard to Kill pay-per-view? There's a very good chance. Because she has since lost to Sammy twice, once at Slammiversary, and then again in a rematch, I think a couple weeks later. So at one of their Impact Plus Twitch specials or whatever. So she is owed a victory over Sammy eventually. It may not come so soon. I would really wait on that match and give it away like down the road at like the April pay-per-view or whatever, not necessarily the January one, because Sammy just won the world title. But he could very well be a transitional champion for Tessa Blanchard. We'll see. But just based on the way they have built her up, honestly, and this is coming from a guy who's not big on intergender wrestling, that I could buy into that. I honestly would not have an issue with that. If she's in there beating like all the guys and, she's champion for 6 months, then probably not. But beating a guy like Sammy, who's not a monster, he's probably shorter than fucking Tessa Blanchard, or around the same size, it's believable. It makes sense, Like when Sexy Star won the championship in Lucha Underground many years ago. I think she won like the Aztec Warfare and what's his name? Not Mil Muertes, but I think she actually did pin Mil Muertes to become the champion in that match. But Jeff Cobb's character, Matanza, got pinned for the first time, not by her, which would have been fucking ridiculous considering how long they built him up for. But that was a long process. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is that that was just unbelievable, and because she sucks. Sexy Star was terrible. Tessa Blanchard is actually really, really good, and it makes sense for her to pin someone like a Dave Christ or a Jake Christ or a Sami Callihan. So honestly, I could buy into that, and I would not be opposed to it, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing it happen at Hard to Kill, hopefully in January. His next question: is it just me, or have the AEW pay-per-views drug on way too long when they didn't need to? I understood it for shows like Double or Nothing and All Out, but every show not every show needs to be that long. Well, I just got done talking about this at the start of the show, but yeah, their shows absolutely need to be cut down. They do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Maybe for, absolutely for Double or Nothing if they want to make it a 4-hour show, maybe even All Out. For a show like Full Gear that wasn't all that important of a pay-per-view, no titles changed hands. MJF turned heel, which was cool. But overall, it wasn't like the greatest show they've ever done. It doesn't need to be a near 4-hour show. It's way too long for people here on the East Coast. It went on until fucking midnight. That's way too late. I know it's a Saturday, but still. I know UFC pay-per-views go well until like 1 a.m. and shit, and they don't start until midnight. I'm not a fucking UFC fan, so I don't really care about that. I'm talking about professional wrestling here. Not many wrestling pay-per-views go until midnight. And they shouldn't. I mean, obviously WrestleMania does, because WrestleMania is WrestleMania, and even that's questionable. But with a full gear, maybe third on the list of big shows that AEW does in any given pay-per-view schedule, it does not need to be 3.5 hours long. Cut some of the matches short, cut a match off the card, and you'd be golden. That's all I'm going to say on that. And his fourth and final question here, what is your go-to Thanksgiving movies if you have any? My number one and my only, really, is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Jason showed me that movie about maybe 2.5 years ago for the first time. And I'm a big John Candy fan. I like Steve Martin. I had never seen or heard of the movie prior to that point. But we watched it, and I absolutely loved it. I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's a really funny movie. It's a great John Candy movie. It reminds me a lot of Uncle Buck, and I fucking love Uncle Buck. That's a really funny movie, too. But a lot of people may not realize this. It's not a Christmas movie. He's going home for the Thanksgiving holiday, not Christmas. So that's a Thanksgiving movie. I will be watching that on Thanksgiving morning, probably, is my current timetable. But yeah, very good movie. Looking forward to watching that. And that's about it. Instead of maybe a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving or whatever. But anyone complaining that, there's no movies to watch in Thanksgiving or around November because all the Halloween movies were in October and all the Christmas movies were in December and I have nothing to watch this month, get the fuck over it and wait until right after Thanksgiving, maybe even Black Friday. I would wait until December 1st. That's just me. But either way, get the fuck over it. There's no reason to be watching Christmas movies this soon. I hate when people do that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. Don't watch any Christmas movies. You can wait. You can wait another 2 weeks. That's all it is. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. Wait until at least after Thanksgiving to put up your tree, put up the lights, watch the movies, play the music. Until then, it's all Pilgrims full steam ahead here. Going back to Jared here, he's got a Twitter question, at Ferens53, Ferens. I don't know exactly how to pronounce your last name, but I'm sure you will correct me on the Twitter machine nonetheless. His question was, who will be the first truly homegrown AEW talent to win the World Championship? Obviously, anyone from WWE and the Elite do not count. That's a great question. If not anyone from WWE, which would probably be Jon Moxley or Kenny Omega, whatever, I would either go with MJF, who I wouldn't put the championship on next year, but imagine how cool it would be if Cody and MJF now feud. MJF beats Cody in their first match. They end the feud. They go back to it a year or two later with MJF as the world champion, and Cody has to beat him to win the world championship. I think that'd be amazing. So I'm going to say MJF. If not MJF, then Darby Allin. I think Darby Allin looked great in defeat against Chris Jericho in that match about 4 weeks ago. They had a really good match. And I would love to see Darby Allin at some point as the AEW World Champion. Obviously, we'll need more development between now and then as a character. We don't really know much about him, but he's good enough in the ring, has a good look. He's young enough where I can absolutely see him being a one that they build around on that brand as the World Champion down the road. It's like that underdog story, I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, MJF and Darby Allin. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his question was, thoughts on it looking like we're getting a Daniel Bryan versus Fiend match at Survivor Series? So it does, because based off who they announced for Team SmackDown at Survivor Series, The Miz isn't on the team. For whatever reason, I have no idea why he's not on the team. But Daniel Bryan is conspicuous by his absence on the team. So if Bryan's not on the team, they are definitely, and The Fiend too, obviously. He wasn't going to be in the match anyway, but if they're not going to put The Fiend, Wyatt, or Bryan on the team, then it only makes sense after what we saw last week on SmackDown to do Daniel Bryan and Wyatt at Survivor Series. So looking forward to that. These guys worked very well together during their first feud over 5 years ago. That handicap match at TLC was good with Bryan facing the entire Wyatt family. And then we saw Bryan face Wyatt one-on-one at the Royal Rumble. And Wyatt won, and Bryan was never able to avenge that loss. They had maybe one or two matches after that, either in 2014 or 2015, but nothing too major. It was on Raw, and I don't think Bryan won, at least not by pinfall. So it's a cool story to revisit. And they have a ton of history. They have great chemistry. Honestly, I will go on the record in saying this. Wyatt's best WWE match very well may have been with Daniel Bryan at that 2014 Royal Rumble show. And that show was shit. But probably the only good part about that show was Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt in the opening match. So again, I don't know how that's going to change with Wyatt now doing the Fiend character and how protected that's been and how he was basically made to look immortal in that match at Crown Jewel and also at Hell in the Cell. So I'm not sure how that affects things. But if anyone can get a good match out of Wyatt, the Fiend, whatever, it is Daniel Bryan. So I like the idea. It looked like they may have been setting up the Fiend and Miz. That's not a Survivor Series worthy match. At some point, maybe. I honestly would love to see Bryan be the ultimate person to take that title from Bray Wyatt in the Fiend as a babyface. It doesn't look like we're getting that, unfortunately, just because I doubt the Fiend loses the title so soon, nor should he. They can always revisit it down the road if they wanted to. But as of right now, though, Bryan and Wyatt at Survivor Series, I'm sold on it. The card already looks great as it is, and adding Bryan and the Fiend to that for the Universal Championship will only add to it. At RJ_Marceau, my brother Mr. Marceau, his first question was, he's got a couple here, what has been AEW's and NXT's biggest mistake and success since the Wednesday Night Wars have begun? That's a good question. For AEW, I've said it a million times before, the lack of focus on the women's division. They got to do a better job of showcasing their women. They had 2 women's matches at Full Gear, which is a step in the right direction. They had Britt Baker and Bea Priestley on the pre-show, buy-in, kickoff show, whatever, which was a good match. And then they had Ryo and Emi Sakura on the main card, which was, again, another very good match. But they need to do a better job of giving me a reason to care about these women. The video package they put together for both matches were actually great. Britt Baker's promo was very good. Wasn't as high in Bea Priestley's promo, but it was all right. The video package they put together for Ryo versus, I don't think it's Sakura, I think it's Sakura. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. But Emi. Their match was a very good match, but the video package they produced for that match was even better. I thought it did a great job of telling the story that Ryo was her mentor over in Japan many, many years ago. I thought that was awesome. The footage they used was great. They need more of that on Dynamite. They need to showcase their women better on Dynamite. I don't know if it's a TNT thing or what, but they did a very good job of showcasing those women on the pay-per-views before Dynamite debuted and also on Full Gear. So why don't we see more of that on the actual show? They do a good job of showcasing the women on AEW Dark, not so much on Dynamite. So they need to do a better job of that. And also, as RJ tweeted earlier today, which I completely agree with, not focus as much on WWE. Now, I'm not saying WWE is completely innocent in this, but you don't see shots being taken at AEW and NXT. I feel like it's not done a lot on AEW TV, but we see enough of it, like the bad creative stuff or the throne thing at Double or Nothing or the shots taken at WWE and being the elite. Yeah, it's funny, but at the same time, what's different now, compared to when it was funny a year or two ago? Well, now you're on national television and you're the EVPs of your own company, the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks are the EVPs of AEW. So 2 years ago when there were 2 fucking marks on the indie scene, it's not really that big of a deal. It's kind of funny. But now that they're the, competitor to WWE, I feel like it kind of comes off as Bush League. Yeah, it's a YouTube video. It's not that big of a deal. It would be worse if they did it on the actual television show. But for them to do it, even still, maybe I'm being too sensitive here. I thought it was funny, the whole plane thing, whatever they made fun of on BTE this week. But I know that was a majority of what their jokes were initially on BTE a few years ago. But now that AEW is a thing, it's not really necessary. So anyway, I wish they would kind of cut back on that a little bit. Other than that, I think they're doing a great job. The shows are very entertaining. NXT's not completely, out of the dark with this. They also have some things to improve upon, including establishing more characters. They have a lot of wrestling-heavy shows, and I appreciate that. But they could also do a better job of showcasing more people via promos and video packages and vignettes and stuff like that. Not all match. We need more than just matches on NXT. So yeah, the lack of promos, lack of real character development with some people, they need to do a better job of that on NXT. And the variety of talent on both Dynamite and NXT, they kind of switch out week after week. We don't see the same faces on every single show, which I appreciate. AEW kind of had an issue with that in the beginning, but they're doing a better job of that now, so I like that. But things they're doing great. Again, the focus on the matches themselves are awesome. Some of the best matches you'll see anywhere all week on TV. Keeping things exciting every single week, giving people things to look forward to, advertising stuff in advance is very important. Hot crowds. NXT could benefit from moving into a hotter, bigger arena at some point. Full Sail is great, but if they really want to go to war, so to speak, with AEW and put on a product that is comparable to AEW Dynamite, and again, their shows are usually better than Dynamite's anyway, at least in my opinion, but they need to move into a bigger building so it comes across like a bigger fight feel for these matches. Performing in front of 400 people, it worked as a developmental brand, but they got 2 hours now on Wednesday nights on USA. They need to move into hotter arenas and bigger, maybe not every single week, but they need to perform in arenas. They need to go around and travel around the country and other places outside of the US to make their shows feel more major league than what we're getting now in Full Sail. So, other than that, though, their crowds are great. The AEW crowds are by and large very good week after week. But, I think the strengths of each promotion outweigh the weaknesses. But overall, it's they've been doing a great job of keeping me interested as a fan, keeping me coming back. And, I watched NXT first I watched Dynamite first for the first few weeks, then NXT first for the few weeks after that. Then I'm now back I'm back to watching Dynamite first. Last week and now this week, probably tonight too with Alexis. So they're doing a great job of making me flip back and forth and want to tune to this show over that show with the stuff they're doing. So kudos to them for that. There is stuff to work on, but overall they're doing a great job of producing some of the best wrestling you will see all week anywhere. RJ's second question: what is next for Britt Baker? Well, I love this notion that RJ has that he wants to ask me more Britt Baker questions because he thinks I hate Britt Baker, and then I'm going to get annoyed at this question. Listen, dude, I love Britt Baker. I think she's very good. She's just not as good as people make her out to be. I'm a big fan of hers. Again, you probably didn't see it, RJ, but the promo she cut on Dynamite last week and before the paper, he didn't even watch the show. He claims he's a big Britt Baker fan. He doesn't even watch the pay-per-views. But anyway, not even after the fact. So, and it's free on YouTube. You don't even have to sign up for the fucking BR Live account. But anyway, the promo that she cut on the kickoff show on Sunday was great. I thought it was a great promo. And the match that she had with B on that show at Full Gear, did I say Sunday? I meant Saturday, because it was a Saturday night pay-per-view. The match they had was probably the best Britt Baker match I've seen so far. And the Rio match was good, and she's had other, decent matches. But the match that she had with B, I thought was very good because it was intense. They told the story. It made sense. So, Britt Baker's coming along nicely. Again, I wouldn't build around her as the face of that female division right now because her in-ring work needs work. But so far, she hasn't done terribly. And what's next for her? I mean, after beating Brie, I could see the feud continuing. Tony Khan made it sound like in a post-show conference after Full Gear on Saturday, one of those post-show media scrums they hold, that he was very high on the idea of putting that feud together. I guess he was very instrumental in crafting that feud, booking it week after week, wanting to drag it out. He really wants to make that feud like maybe not the Trish and Lita of their women's division, but he really wants to make that a big part of that women's division on Dynamite and AEW. So just because Britt won the show doesn't mean the feud is over, and I do assume that it will continue in the weeks ahead. If only based off what Tony Khan said in that post-show media scrum on Saturday. And RJ's final question here: thoughts on Dakota Kai not being in the Women's War Games match, and what is also next for her? Obviously I would have liked to see her in the match because her and Tegan Nox have a natural chemistry. She has as much of an issue with Shayna and the other women as, Tegan does, and Mia Yim and Rhea, and who else do they have? Candice. She has much of an issue with those women as the other women do. But she's not in the match, clearly for a storyline reason. I wasn't upset at it. RJ was pissed. Alexis was pissed that she was bumped from the match. I love Dakota Kai, but they're clearly doing this for a reason. Whether it leads to a heel turn tonight or she joins Team Baszler at the pay-per-view, which is very likely. That is very likely. Whether it's a double turn or not, she's joining them only to turn on Baszler and help them lose or, play a factor in them losing the match, I don't know. But either way, though, they're clearly going somewhere with it, so I have trust and I have faith. I trust that they're going somewhere with it. And that it's not just a case of, Mia Yim was the better candidate. I think it's more a case of they have a story they want to tell here with Dakota Kai. And I'm honestly more intrigued by her being left off than it would have with her being included. So she could very well end up on Team Baszler at the end of this. Whether she actually goes full-fledged heel or not remains to be seen. At Scarlet1, we'll finish it off with their questions here. First one being best and worst of AEW Full Gear. Again, overall, I really enjoyed the show. Not really any worst from the show. Best, I would include Moxley and Omega in there. I really enjoyed the match. Not everyone did. Whatever, I thought it was a great match. Jericho and Cody, an even better match. The best match of the night, in my opinion. Young Bucks, Santana and Ortiz, excellent opener. An excellent opener from those guys. Pac and Page, another very good match from them. And also the triple threat tag team title match between SCU, Private Party, and Lucha Bros was not a lot of stories told. There was more of a spot fest than anything, but it was a very fun match nonetheless. The only real worst match from the show wouldn't even be Britt Baker and Bea Priestley. The match that really bored me the most was Shawn Spears and Joey Janela, just because there was no reason for that match to happen. Like, it wasted at least 50 minutes of the show with the entrances, the post-match stuff. The match itself was like 11 minutes long. It was a complete waste of time. And I like Shawn Spears. I'm glad he got a win, and he's getting back on track here. But that match was, could have very well been saved until after Full Gear for the Wednesday Dynamite show. So I thought that was kind of a waste. And it wasn't a bad match, just really flat, and the crowd didn't care. Best and worst of Wednesday Night Wars Week 6. For last week, I thought both shows were very, very good. To be quite honest with you, there really wasn't any worst from that show. I mean, I've said this every single week now for the last couple of weeks. But with Dynamite, Pac and Trent in the opener was very good. Trent kicking out of Pac's finisher, the botch finish, was kind of shitty, but the match itself was very good. Probably didn't need to go as long as it did, but as a match, it was enjoyable. The main event with Jericho and Sammy versus, I think it was Paige and Omega, I want to say, was a very good match. Cody's promo is amazing. And Jericho's video package for his match, with Cody at Full Gear was also great. That was the best parts of that show. The women's tag team match, I didn't really care about. It was all right, but I didn't really care about it. From NXT, Shayna and Dakota had the best match in the entire show. I mean, actually, the OC, Ciampa, Riddle, and Lee was also great, so those matches would both be up there as being my favorite matches from NXT last week. Tainara Conchi's match would probably be the weak part of the show, the only real worst from NXT for me. But it did serve a purpose because they want to tell the story that maybe Shayna's scouting her and she wants her on the team, which I doubt will happen. You never know, but she beat Santana Garrett in a match that was okay. And that was really about it. Just, some really good matches, good storytelling. I don't think Finn Balor was on the end of the show. Dominik Dijakovic and Isaiah Swerve Scott had a really, really good match right before the main event. That also deserves a mention. I'm all over the place today. I'm still so excited that CM Punk returned, so I apologize for my fuckery here on today's show and me messing up so many words and whatnot. So again, I apologize in advance for that. But just overall, a really good episode of NXT that I enjoyed immensely, as well as Dynamite. If I had to choose between the two, I would say that NXT was the better show. It was the superior show last week. Remains to be seen tonight whether that will continue to be the case. But again, as always, if you want my full breakdowns of every episode of AEW and Dynamite, and WWE NXT, you can listen to my full reviews of both shows on Wrestle Rant Radio every single Thursday for my full thoughts on both shows and which one was better. And that will be the case tomorrow too. Scarlett's last question here, and I'll combine this with the question from at BASMRWSW, or let me say, BASMRMSW was his Twitter handle. They both asked thoughts on CM Punk's return to WWE via WWE Backstage. Very cool. I, among everyone else, thought it wasn't happening after it was reported about a week or two ago that they had passed on it, they didn't want Punk, and I figured, you know what, it makes sense. Punk probably doesn't want to show for them. If it's not for the right amount of money, he won't do it. But he made it sound like initially that they passed on him and they didn't want him. And obviously, either that was the case and they went back to him and said, hey, the rating bombed, we need you, and they brought him in. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you have him debut on the premiere show? Unless he had something else going on that day, I don't know why else you wouldn't have him on that show. But it was still cool to see. I've since watched that clip back of him coming back on the show at least a dozen times, if not more than that. But it was really, really cool. I'm a big Punk fan. If you don't care that he's back, that's completely fine. But I think it's cool. I'm a big Punk fan. It will be great to see him on a wrestling-related show. Maybe not exactly WWE, but he will be talking WWE. I'm very interested to see how it's handled, because I doubt he goes in there unless they're paying him billions upon billions of dollars, okay? I'm very interested to see if he's paid to go in there and just shill the product. I haven't really watched the show, like I said, so I'm not really sure if they do that anyway. But it's not like he's going to go on the show and be like, oh, that Rusev Lana, Bobby Lashley angle, it's absolute shit. Like, I wish he would. Will he be allowed to? It remains to be seen. As long as he doesn't go too far, and as long as he doesn't, completely kiss their ass, which I don't think he would do anyway, then I think it's going to be a very strong addition to an otherwise good cast of characters. The show looks fine. It just didn't really look like it was anything out of the ordinary before CM Punk joined the cast this week. That being said, though, I will be watching next week, absolutely. And I was thinking about this, too. Survivor Series weekend is in Chicago. No, I'm not saying he will be back. I doubt he would, because obviously this deal is with Fox, and it's going to be a while before they can kind of build that bridge again between WWE and CM Punk. I think it's going to be a long time before we see CM Punk back in WWE. Hey, maybe it's before WrestleMania. Who the hell knows? I highly doubt it. People can dream all day long and all they want. And obviously, Punk knew what he was doing when he was getting. He knew what he was getting into when he signed up for this. That people would fantasize about an in-ring return and stuff like that, and him going back to WWE. Otherwise, why else would he do this aside from just the money? He had to know this was coming. That being said, they would be fools to not at least try to get Punk on the Survivor Series show, at least shown sitting in the crowd or something. I mean, that might be an underwhelming return to WWE TV for him, but that show, if he's not on it, it's going to be hijacked by CM Punk chants, even more than usual because they're in Chicago. So the timing honestly couldn't really be any worse, because I don't think they're going to bring him in for the show, and as a result of that, I think the show will suffer because people will get their hopes up for CM Punk and he won't be there. And I think it's a mistake, because now he's not going to be on the show and people will just chant for him all night long. Maybe they'll be more inclined to mention him and quiet down the chants, because he is he's not back with the company, but he's on a WWE related show. Maybe they'll just try to have someone cut a promo and say, hey, you can't watch CM Punk tonight, but check out Backstage on Tuesdays, blah, 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 on FS1. I don't know how it's going to be handled, but either way, I am very excited to see CM Punk back in WWE. I've been waiting for this since the get-go. I said from the moment he left that he would be back eventually. And obviously, I'm not 100% correct just yet, because he's not signed a deal with WWE. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions and say, oh, I was right. I wasn't, because he's not back with WWE. The cool thing is that he's on a show that talks about WWE, and it's WWE related. And obviously, WWE has a very strong relationship with Fox. So maybe at some point this does lead to him making an appearance on Raw at a pay-per-view, maybe one more match. I'm not getting my hopes up. I don't think it's happening. You never know. But it's a step in the right direction, if nothing else. And we got to hear that music. We got to hear Cult of Personality last night. People don't realize, oh, this is such a shit return. I really wanted to hear it on Raw. Get the fuck over yourselves. First of all, be happy that it's happening at all, if you're a CM Punk fan, which, from what I've gathered in the last 5 years, there's not many of us left, because a lot of people jumped off that bandwagon a long time ago. And second of all, they did it the perfect way. They did it perfectly. It's not like they had a promo air on Raw saying, hey, check out CM Punk on Backstage. It would have been like, what the fuck? But how they handled it is exactly how I would have wanted to see it happen on Backstage, where they play the music. No one knew about it except for Renee Young. Everyone freaks out. He cuts a very short promo promoting himself for next week, and that's it. You go off the air. That is so perfect. That is how you book a fucking return if it's not going to be on WWE TV. They played the music. I'm not really sure what else people would want, But it was awesome, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table on WWE Backstage. And that's going to do it for me, folks, here on #AskGSM for Wednesday, November 13th, 2019, for episode we're well past that, 311 here on today's show. And once again, I went well over an hour for today's show. I was not planning on that, but I go off on tangents sometimes, as you guys know, on this show. So I enjoy it, though. I enjoy your questions, as always. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comments section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have a great rest of your week, enjoy watching that CM Punk return back if you're a CM Punk fan from backstage last night. And until next week, guys, I am Graham GSM Matthews. I'll catch your ass down the road.